not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
All right, we got our guy Kyle Tigey in the house here for a State of the Wolves Monday. We got the sports dad Judd, got producer Dex, and we have crazy trades happening all over. Like possibly the most, I don't think it's hyperbolic, you guys tell me, to say that was the most shocking what the bleep trade in the history of the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It felt
Definitely.
good, too. Like I was saying before we hit record, that was like just an OG night on Twitter. We got down so many different rabbit holes. There are conspiracy theories. The Mavs are moving to Vegas. We're making fun of a guy for being fat. We're finding
the Mavericks are literally leaking like, hey, he's 270. The guy's total fat ass.
They got to leak something. They've got to justify it somehow, right?
Brian Russillo had the best. I don't care if he's smoking cigarettes, bringing the ball up the court. You still don't trade him. Just a real great weekend for the NBA.
Don't you at least see if there's a second team that might want to create a bidding war? Just maybe float one text message to, I don't know, the Celtics or something.
It's the most. I think it is the most shocking in-season trade in professional sports history.
Wow.
That's what I think. Like the Gretzky trade to the Kings in '89 was shocking, but all of these things ordinarily come in the off season.
Yeah.
I think the fact that the trigger was pulled in season makes it the most shocking trade in that context that I've ever seen, and I would dare you to go back and find one in sports history that was more shocking in season.
Yeah. So we'll dive more into it. It's still trade deadline week, and the Timberwolves have been speculated upon. So we'll go through our State of the Wolves here. Dex, let's take the audience to Kieran's first before we get started with State of the Wolves.
That's right. Yeah, let's stop over to Kieran's. We'll talk about the craziest trades you can remember. We'll just start making new trades. You know, I saw everyone using the comparison of explain this in MLB terms, explain this in NHL terms, explain this in NFL terms. Great discussions. We'll have it over pints at Kieran's, some great pub food, some great pours, game day specials, plenty of awesome stuff at Kieran's just across the street from the Target Center in downtown Minneapolis.
All right, Dex, tell us the overview here, and then we'll go through our different categories.
All right, so State of the Wolves, here's our overview. They're 27-22 on the season. They are 7th in the Western Conference. They're a game back of the top 6 from being out of that play-in, which is good news. They remain 14th in offensive rating. They were 14th last week in offensive rating, so they stay put there. They move up one spot in defensive rating from 7th to 6th, so now they have the 6th best defensive rating. According to ESPN.com, their playoff odds also have gone up. They're now 58.9% chance to make the playoffs, according to ESPN. Basketball Reference continues to be way more bullish. They're at 89% now to be a playoff team, according to Basketball Reference. 0.1% chance to win the Larry O'Brien, according to ESPN.
Disrespectful.
And 0.5 for Basketball Reference. So I don't know where the stew is being made here. That's different between the Basketball Reference one. You got your Instant Pot, and then you got your slow cooker. I don't know what's happening between both of the stews there. But that's your overview of the Wolves. And then, if the playoffs started today, too, the Wolves would still host the Suns in a play-in situation, which, I mean, if we know anything about the Wolves and Suns rivalry, sign me up for something like that. I would love to be out of the play-in, but if that's the case, inject that type of game and atmosphere into my veins at Target Center. But that's your State of the Wolves. Wolves vibes, though. What are the Wolves vibes? Judd, would you like to start us off on the vibe check with this current Wolves team?
Yes, I'd love to. And I'm going to start off with something that came from Saturday's game. And I know that the team had won, 5 consecutive games before that. So the Wolves actually were playing pretty well. But I think Finchie deserves some heat here. So I'm going to say the vibes, the call is coming from inside the house, and they're a bit self-sabotaging. You know, you're playing Washington, 16-game losing streak. I believe it was their second 16-game skid of the season. They're absolutely horrendous. And in the fourth quarter, you are, to your credit, you are short-handed. Ant is sick. Nas is hurt. Julius is hurt. But in the fourth quarter, you decide that because Dillingham especially, Garza as well, but I'd like to focus on Rob Dillingham because he didn't play great in the third quarter. He's not going to play the entire fourth. And it's like, hold on a second here. You're playing Washington. So, like, if he didn't play well, that's not like he can't come back and improve on that quickly. It's not like a shutdown team. And second of all, he is, I mean, if anything that we have seen, despite his faults, Dillingham gives you a burst of energy that your team desperately needed. And instead, God bless him, I love him. He's basically my age. Joe Ingles is going to carry you, and Mike Conley. So I think that the vibes are not from a player standpoint, guys. I think from the vibes from Chris Finch's standpoint, unfortunately, because of his stubbornness, self-sabotaging, because I thought that was an absolutely horrendous way to end what had been a really good week for the Timberwolves.
I have takes on this, but I want to hear what Kyle says for a vibe check. By the way, that was the Wizards' first road win since October 28th. So yeah, I don't know if they like poured Gatorade over their coach in the locker room. I don't know how maybe they did some crowd surfing, but I'm curious to see what Kyle's vibes check is.
I'm going to be completely honest, and this is another benefit or just fallout from the Luka Doncic trade. I kind of forgot they lost to the Wizards because 2 hours later, the biggest trade in NBA history happened. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's kind of a good time to happen after your favorite team loses to a team that has 2 16-game losing streaks in the same season. The Washington Wizards might be the worst team I've ever watched. I went and watched the Washington Generals last week against the Globetrotters. So, yeah, my vibes, I was going to say, are kind of like cautiously optimistic, stock up, because I think every now and then there's just a blip on the radar. Like they had won, 6 games coming into that. They looked really good against Phoenix. But to Judd's point, and then this will probably, Phil, be where you can take off, but I thought the way that they used Rob in that game was weird, and Finch deserves blame because not only are you out Ant, you're out Julius, you're out Nas, and you're out Dante. You're probably out your 4 best offensive players. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's the Wizards. They're an embarrassment. They're on a 16-game losing streak. But I thought Finch had like a get-out-of-jail-free card where he could have just played Rob a bunch.
Yeah.
And if Rob loses them the game, you kind of go into the post-game presser and say, guys, cut me some slack. Like, he's 20. He's not ready for some of this yet, and you're totally free. And if he wins you the game, you're on a 7-game winning streak, you're 28-21, and you can say, hey, listen, the kid's going to be good, like whatever. So it was like you had either way would have been a good win for Finch, but the one way he went was, I'm just going to not play him. And I don't know, like Mike Conley, we all love him, Minnesota Mike, but there's just a real hard ceiling on what he can do now, whether it be in clutch situations. He doesn't have a lot of burst. And I just thought that game needed, Jaden McDaniels was the best offensive player on the court, and I love Jaden, but that is a nightmare. So he should have played Rob more in that game specifically. Maybe not in Phoenix. That was a Jaylen Clark game. Maybe not in Utah. That was a runaway, but he should have played Rob in that fourth quarter for sure.
Yeah, I think, well, my vibes check is actually different than this, but I'll comment on this and give you my word. Just play him for 30 minutes in a game in which you desperately need offense, you desperately need shot creation. And like Finch's comeback and other people that I was interacting with on Twitter, probably arguing way too much about, a mid or I guess late January, early February game against the Wizards. Like, yeah, it sucks that they lost. It's understandable in some ways because of the guys they were down. But my favorite argument is, well, did you see the third quarter? Dude, Rob was bad in the third quarter. Okay. Like the other Wolves lost to the Wizards. So, like the guys that played instead of him lost to a 6-win Wizards team. And yeah, Joe Ingles had his best game of the year, scored his first points of the year. Nice job, Joe. Made a couple nice passes, a little old school Joe Ingles. But yeah, it's funny because as bad as Dillingham was in the third quarter, and as much as he can be a sieve on defense at times, they actually had a better net rating overall, including the bad defense, with him on the court versus off the court. Because, they were break even when he was on the court, and they lost the game. So just kind of like Finch has such a short leash and short patience with some of these guys. And Kyle, you've mentioned it. Like, if you can just be real with yourself, what do you want out of this season? If you're still grinding because you think you can beat the Oklahoma City Thunder in the Western Conference Finals to then conquer the Celtics in the NBA Finals, then yeah, I guess you have a short leash on the 19-year-olds who are going to shipwreck your championship season. But that's not what this is, especially on a night against a bad team where your 4 best offensive creators are out. This is it would be perfectly understandable to lose that game riding a 19-year-old for a lesson learned, right? But to lose that game and not give him a chance to make up for a bad third quarter and learn a lesson is just a weird move. I think there's a middle ground between fire Finch's ass and some criticism here. I'm still in critical mode. I don't think he should be fired or anything like that. But dude, like, let Rob Dillingham work through some of this stuff as a 19-year-old against the worst team in the NBA. My actual vibes check is reckless. Wolves vibes are reckless because now that Luka got traded, anyone can get traded. Anything can happen. Buckle up for this week. Also buckle up for nothing to happen and for Julius Randle to control the entire franchise's destiny this summer. But no one knows what's going to happen between now and Thursday. It's going to be crazy. Tim Connolly operates out of the shadows. So all we can do is just refresh our phones every 30 seconds until the trade deadline hits on Thursday.
You guys are all at more home games than I am. So one more thing on the Rob thing, but whether you're sitting in media row or you're sitting in the 100, 200 section, when Rob checks in, there's like juice, right? Because he just turned 20, and you know, I think the third quarter was actually pretty bad, to be honest with you. I thought Rob played really bad, but who cares? Again, to the point, like, your cards are stacked against you with your 4 offensive players being out. Like, just let Rob lose you the game and then say, I told you so. Why not? So if there was on the road against Washington, it's like, okay, Joe Ingles, steady vet. Let's just trust these guys on the road. Washington fans are getting loud. They don't want to lose 17 in a row. But at home, man, like, I think that's a real thing, too. Like, I thought it was real when Finch got ejected in Phoenix, gave him a jolt. I think Finch could have given the whole stadium a jolt by just let Rob go out there and learn on the fly. So, I don't know. I would kind of chalk 85% of that loss up to Chris Finch.
And, if Conley was playing really well, if Ingles had been consistently playing, right, that's one thing. But it was almost like Finch was like, I'd rather go down with my vets.
Right. Yeah.
But you've got the 8th overall pick on your bench. I keep going back to this. He's a top 10 pick. Like, he's not some guy that you signed after the 2 rounds were done and you're like, oh, he might be a pleasant surprise. So I would far prefer to lose and get a player experience. And like, let's see here. Okay, he has a bad third quarter. Does he rebound? Does he come back and play well? Like, we don't know. Finch stopped that. And, the guys that he does play, to me, they've got no future here now. So I guess my question is, what are you doing and why? And do you really think that it helps to suppress Dillingham? Like, does that help his growth potential? Does that help him now? Does that help the team? My response to all 3 of those questions rhetorically would be no, it doesn't. So that's my problem with it.
Dex.
I would say vibes for me, even though despite a weird loss, even though you were really handicapped from your starters, vibes are still good for the Wolves. I mean, they kind of saved their season to a degree with their win streak. I mean, they put themselves back in a trajectory where they could be in the top 6. They had an awesome game against the Suns. They blew out the Jazz. I was there last Monday night, a week ago, for the Hawks game. I know that was certainly clunky, but I love that Chris Finch called out everyone for their soft performance. I still really like the vibes of this team. And now with the deadline knocking on the door, and basically any trade can happen, don't give me more second apron problems. I open up all the avenues and doors for trades for the Wolves. I'm very excited for that. And the vibes for me are still just fine.
Okay, what is your favorite current Wolves thing, Kyle?
Well, I mean, I think I said in October when they traded Karl Anthony Towns, we didn't really know much about Dante and Julius. We knew they were good players, had some flaws, but I just had a really hot take that I thought Jaden McDaniels would be the second best player on the team come May. And then that take got thrown in my face really hard for October, November, and December. But he had the best month of his career in January. I asked Finch in Phoenix. I was like, you've been here for 95% of Jaden's career. You've seen his ups and downs. Do you think this is the best basketball? And before I could finish the question, he said, absolutely. So I think getting Jaden to kind of take off, especially on things that, yes, he's scoring a little more. The corner threes have gotten a little better. I do think he shot like 40% from 3 in January, which I don't think is sustainable, but it's an improvement. But the fact that he rebounds, the fact that he playmakes, the fact that he, on some nights, is the best rim protector. He was their best rim protector against Phoenix. So I just think getting him to kind of come around, he got a 600% pay raise this season. I think that's really big for what this team is trying to do, because I do think him being able to play more of the 4, again, what happens with Julius this week or leading up until the draft, I think is the window now to kind of figure that out. It's not just this week. So if Julius Randle's on the team on Friday, I don't think you have to immediately sell your Naz Reid towels, but I think there's time to figure that out. But I just think having Jaden kind of level up during this chaos, during a streak of games where they won a lot of them, right? Like Dex said. So that's my favorite thing, is I think he found his confidence again. And I also just love anytime he's pulling guys out of fights now, but that's not who he is. I love when he still gets in the mud and pokes Devin Booker in the ear. So that was awesome.
He's averaging in January 13 points, 7 rebounds, a couple assists, 3 stocks, so 2 steals and a block. And to your point, so 52% field goal percentage, and he's shooting 42% from 3 in January. So like the 3-point shooting has it's a month sample size, but the 3-point shooting's come around. He's discovered double doubles, which is great. It's like when Wiggins discovered rebounding in the Western Conference Finals, like, oh yeah, I just kind of figured out that I could jump up and grab rebounds. And Jaden, who never came close to double doubles, has 4 of them since December 15th. And I don't think he had one in his career until December 15th.
He has 4 in like the last 20 games, and he had 0 in the first like 240 games. And he's 6'10". He's been 6'10" the whole time, so it's not like he grew. So that's tough, but
he didn't just
shout
grow.
out to Jaden.
No, although KG went through a weird growth spurt when he was like in his early. Didn't KG grow like 2 inches after he was in the NBA for a couple years?
I'm sure he did, yeah.
Crazy. Judd, your favorite current Wolves thing?
Not Jaden, but Jaylen Clark. Unlocked finally, unleashed, allowed to play. And look, he is definitely a guy who probably has to play a set amount. I'm not implying that he should start or is going to be a great player, but you know what? He plays defense. And again, he does the same thing that Dillingham does. He brings an energy that veterans don't necessarily bring. But I love the fact that he can shoot well enough to get by, but he also, you could tell, is a complete pain in the ass to play against on his defensive side. So I think that is, if Finch will use them, and Clark actually did play a bit against Washington on Saturday. If Finch will use them, I think that you've got some components here of guys that can definitely play roles. Jaylen Clark is one, and it's just nice to see that they have, it might not be exactly what we want, but they have allowed some guys to get off the bench and prove that they can at least be a part of the rotation, which a month ago we thought had no chance of happening.
Yeah. Yeah, he was his plus minus came back to earth a little bit in his 3rd game of meaningful playing time, but he was like plus 43 in the 27 minutes he played back to back on that West Coast swing, which is obviously not sustainable. But yeah, like you see Kyle use the word juice with Dillingham. There's a defensive juice with Jaylen Clark, and it doesn't mean those guys are going to be, they're trying to figure out their first NBA minutes, basically. So they're going to have stretches where, okay, yeah, you're a young kid who's just kind of lost, and we'll put you over here. But it's nice to know that if you need some juice or if guys are hurt, okay, these dudes are racking up some actual meaningful minutes. My favorite current Wolves thing, which is actually also kind of my least favorite current Wolves thing, is they're very competitive against winning teams. But on the flip side, they also have some inexplicable losses against sub 500 teams. They have the second most losses against below 500 teams of any of the playoff teams. They're 11-6 against below 500 teams, but they are 16-16 against winning teams, which is a better record by far than the Clippers, who are 5 games below 500 against winning teams, the Lakers, who are below 500 against winning teams. The Grizzlies are 500 against winning teams, and they're 19-3 against the teams that they're supposed to beat. So I don't obviously beat the teams you're supposed to beat, but sometimes if you're projecting out, if you get to the playoffs, how much damage can you do? I'm more interested in how do you perform against the above 500 teams, because you don't have to worry about a sleepy, Tuesday night against Portland or something. All due respect to Kyle, but the fact that they have, and by the way, the teams right, but the Suns are 12-16 against above 500 teams. The Mavericks 11-20 and just shook up their entire universe. The Kings are 12-17. The Warriors are 13-21. It's hard to beat winning teams at a high clip, and the Wolves are definitely in the mix and beating good teams on a regular basis. It just, that Washington game was such a crazy blip that it's hard to stomach that. Dex, your favorite current Wolves thing?
easily Devin Booker thinking Luka getting traded means Luka Garza. I don't know if you guys saw those quotes from Saturday night, but Devin Booker, when he got word on the bench that Luka got traded, his immediate response and thought was, "Oh, Luka Garza, not Luka Doncic."
He speaks for us all, right?
Brilliant.
Oh, Luka Garza, by the way, only player on the Wolves, I think, with a full no trade clause because of his he has to waive a no trade clause if you were to include Luka Garza.
How did that happen?
I think it was I don't think it was like agent playing hardball. I think it was like something to do with the mechanics of his contract. We can ask somebody smarter than us, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I just finished up the Royal Rumble when that trade went down. Yes, I was a couple cocktails in on the couch, and my brother-in-law was over, and he said, "Hey, Luka just got traded to the Lakers," and my immediate response was, "Shut the bleep up," because I was like, "No, it didn't. You're reading the wrong thing. You're not reading a check mark." He's like, "I don't know what to tell you, but I'm looking at this, and it says Luka and Anthony Davis just got swapped." Craziest trade, craziest reaction ever, but I love that Devin Booker's first thought was Luka Garza.
It's wild. Okay, is it a hot take? Because my first reaction was, wow, oh my God, I need to check. Did Shams get hacked? Did ESPN get hacked? Okay, nobody got hacked. This is real. And then Shams even tweeted, no, this is real for everyone wondering if I got hacked. This is happening. But then my second thought was, I actually kind of love this short term for the Mavericks. Like the Mavericks, Kyrie is a generational offensive player. Anthony, you don't lose a ton of. Anthony Davis can score. PJ Washington can score. I mean, this older version of Klay Thompson when he's on the court. But you have three monstrous defenders on the court that you're not going to put them all on the court at the same time. But in Lively, Gafford, and Anthony Davis is one of the best big men defenders in the last 20 years. I mean, I know that Luka, like at 250, 270 pounds, took them to they beat the Wolves and they went to the NBA Finals. But like the fact that the Mavericks said, we are better without him. We know how much, we know the scoring average. We know how he's 25 years old. I think like in terms of value, to not shop him and get leverage and pit a couple teams off each other, it's inexcusable value. I mean, Rudy Gobert generated, a decade worth of first round picks and a bunch of players. Like you have to get more for him. But the fact that the Mavs said, yep, staring down the barrel of a $350 million supermax, we think he's chronically out of shape. We think he's a frumpy, bad culture guy, and we don't think we're going to win a championship with him. And we'd rather just focus on the next 2 or 3 years because who cares? We're not going to be here anyways. It's wild. And the Mavs are going to be a problem in the short term in the Western Conference.
The reason I'm here today, I know we got to keep this short, but can I do a little crossover quick? Because I think what I took away from this weekend, I have a good friend who covers the Mavs from back in my blogging days. And he kind of got me to change my thought a little bit. I don't want you to stop the quote or the motto, but Purple Daily, win one before I die. To Phil's point, I do think the Mavs might be a little better like for the next couple of months. And my friend who covers the Mavs says, I literally don't bleep and care. I would they have a title with Dirk, right? So like Wolves fans, Vikings fans, whatever, they don't have really titles. But he kind of had me come around on the fact that they would rather. I mean, they knew about Luka when he was like 16. Like they were bad. They had these lottery picks coming up. They're watching him in Europe. Like they would rather have watched Luka play his entire career with the Mavs and try to win a title than have a 10% better chance of winning a title this year. And it kind of did, like I tweeted out that if Ant was traded for Anthony Davis, like. No joke, you wouldn't get a goodbye podcast. Like, I'd just be done because I would rather cheer for Ant than be like, oh, I guess we have according to Basketball Reference, like a 7% better chance to win. So I think
that's kind of what the Cat trade feels like, is that a lot of people are like, I'd rather root for Cat than like talk about that this might be better for the Timberwolves over a 5-year arc.
And I'm not saying either. I mean, you guys are the best at this. I'm not saying you have to agree with it, but it did kind of open my eyes. And I think you're naive if you don't even accept the fact that in 2025, there's more player music counts than there are people cheering for teams. Like, I think that is such a bad trade. I imagine the Sunday Scaries for someone in their mid-20s who's a ticket sales rep for the Mavs today. Imagine waking up today and I got to cold call people to be like, hey, would you like to buy season tickets?
Just quit.
Like that whole, Nico Harrison had a lot of stones to make that trade, but think about how many people it affects. And I just, I wonder if you're a Vikings fan, if you're like, hey, we have a 7% better chance to win a Super Bowl next year, but we're trading Justin Jefferson for Travis Kelce and a day 2 pick. I think you lose 1 million followers. I think you really do. Again, it's all about winning titles. I get that, but I was kind of opened my eyes this week to actually it's not for some people. Like, it's just about watching this fat kid come in and then I guess still stay fat, but like they wanted to be part of his whole journey and story. And it kind of changed how I look at sports a little bit this weekend.
There are flowers put out by the
There's
Dirk
a casket.
statue,
There's a
and
casket.
someone brought a
There's a
casket
casket.
to it.
Yeah,
Someone
crazy.
brought a casket to it.
Taker.
So I think you're right. The thing, too, though, is like if you look at this trade and the timing, and as Phil said, the weirdest thing is there's no evidence they shopped him.
Yep.
It feels like there is.
They confirmed they didn't shop him,
Yeah.
by the way. Confirmed they didn't shop him.
Beyond him not being in great shape, and beyond the fact that they were going to have to decide in the offseason on the Supermax, it feels like there's another chapter to the story that we don't know. Like, this is so bizarre. Like, why wouldn't you wait? Why wouldn't you shop him? There was time that, I'm sorry, I think at some point in time, and it probably is going to take a year or two, I think we're going to find out more, because it makes no sense. And I'll say this on Cat. People here, I feel like there's now a lot of, I loved Cat, and it's like, no, you didn't before. With Doncic, it feels like that guy was loved, from day one. Like, the Cat thing now is like, why would you traded Cat? I don't get it. I love Cat. It's like, no, you didn't. You got sick of him too.
Luka Garza got louder ovations when he checked in than Cat did. Like
Doncic, I think that there was a genuine affection for because he looks like a bear. He looks like Pooh Bear. So he does. So I get that, but I think there's an untold story here. I really do. It's just too bizarre. And at the press conference that they did before the game yesterday, watching the GM and Jason Kidd sit there, Jason Kidd looked like he had just seen a man die. Like, Jason Kidd is like just staring like, oh my God, dude, you are really not in good shape right now.
It's the most uncomfortable because apparently Jason, I have a hard time believing that he wasn't consulted at some, but this thing came together kind of like in the last couple of days, but when the GM starts talking about how Nico Harris, right? He starts talking about, the future is 10 years from now. The future is 5 years from now. We might not even be here. They're going to have buried us. He kind of looks over at Jason like they're going to have kind of buried us. And Jason's like, you could see him just physically squirm like.
His first question when there's a lot of media there, surprise, surprise, is like, hey, Jay, is there always this many people at your pregame press conference? It's like, that's not funny. You literally just traded away a player that people had gotten, tattooed. I mean, that, again, to Judd's point, there was a casket outside American Airlines Arena. Read the room a little bit, right? I don't know. I just came away from this weekend reminding myself sometimes, this is probably why I cried 6 months ago, that it is a little bigger than just wins and losses. And you don't have to agree with that. But, when you're a president of basketball operations, it is bigger than just, can I make my starting five a little sexier? It is like, what does this mean to the community? What does this mean to the state? What does this mean to the fans? Good luck with all of that moving forward, because I think there's a real chance, there are moves in sports that take you over a decade to recover from. And to Phil's point, I actually kind of like the Mavs roster a little bit right now. They could be fun this season. That team, that franchise now has leveled down a full $1 billion value. That team now is really messed up moving forward because you also didn't get any long-term assets. You didn't get any young players or any picks.
It's weird to not hedge a little bit and get full value. It's one thing to decide we're going to trade a 25-year-old top 3 player in the league, even with his flaws. We've decided we can't put up with his flaws, but that should literally start a 6 to 12 month bidding war where you play it out this year and you plant seeds in the offseason to not leverage it. Maybe they're right. Maybe they are better off without him. Maybe they are better off in the short term because now they've got a defensive force. By the way, Anthony Davis has actually played 85 or 90% of the available games the last 2 years. I think he's played more games than Luka. So people talking about Anthony Davis can't stay on the floor, well, Luka can't either. Luka Has Luka ever played more than maybe 70 games in a season? So those criticisms are equal. But here's my question to you guys. If somebody offered you, because the super max that he was going to get with the Mavericks is a lot more than what he can get. It's like a 4-year, $225 million deal with the Lakers now that he can sign. It was like $325 or something with the Mavs. If somebody offered you let's call it $350 million to stop drinking beer and to lose like 20 pounds, wouldn't that it's weird to me that Zion and Luka are sitting here unable to just like get in elite basketball shape, or unwilling or uninterested in doing it. But when someone gives you because he's got a bag now before the $300 million contract, it is wild to me that for these 15 years in your life, just be in elite shape and you won't have to worry about getting shipped out of your hometown and being shocked like this. Like, wouldn't that be enough motivation? Here's $300,000 or $300 million, Judd. You can't drink an IPA for 10 years.
I will say.
Am I really good at what I do, and I can still get 225 or 230? I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
I don't know what would put me in the hospital first, me stopping from drinking or me losing 20 pounds, because one of those two things is putting me in the hospital.
Okay, so for you,
you don't need to.
Different.
See, that's the thing. You're fortunate.
Dude, the other conspiracy is that, so Michael Finley is I think he's the Mavericks all-time leading scorer. Is that accurate?
Oh,
above
no.
Dirk? Or that he's next on the list? And he's the one that took the beer out of Luka's hand in the tunnel at Target Center. And that, hey, he's the assistant general manager. Let's ship him out of here before he passes me and the Mavericks all-time
You're kidding.
Scoring leaderboard.
That's an all-timer.
And the sad thing for Mavs fans is not only those numbers that Phil said, but we're also talking about Texas, no state income tax, to California that's like, what, 50%? Luka Doncic is probably going to have a six-pack by August because he's going to be introduced to kale and all the fun stuff that Californians do. He's hanging out with LeBron now, who spends $5 million a year on his body. He is going to, and maybe this is the thing. A lot of times this happens in sports. You just got to piss someone off. He is going to have such a vendetta against everyone. You even saw it in kind of the way he said goodbye. He said like the community and the fans. He never talked about the front office or ownership ever in his way out. So a pissed off Luka Doncic entering his prime in one of the biggest markets in the country. It's sad. Like, it's really sad to think about this morning as like a Timberwolves fan. It's like, okay, what can we do at the deadline to try to get a better chance? And then you look at the Lakers. They had no assets. They had no bullets in the chamber, and they just kind of wake up today, and it's like, oh, hey, you have the second best player in the world. He's 26, yes. I think, in February. Yes. You're probably going to be good again for the next decade. So
that's the thing, though. Like, if you're a Wolves fan, what drives you crazy is exactly that. Like the Lakers. The Lakers have been gifted. Let's go through it. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar from the Bucks.
Shaq.
Hey, here's Kareem. And Kobe. Charlotte took him and traded him. Now he was not going to play there, but you didn't. But still, like, if you look at how the Lakers through the years have constructed that roster, going back to Kareem, and Shaq, and now, I mean, the Lakers should be at a point of disintegration, right? LeBron's old. They're getting older. They're going to be okay, but they're not going to be great. And they just got a generational player who, if he decides to apply himself, is going to be hell for the next 10 to 12 years now. So that's what gets me is, forget Mavs fans, screw them. If you're a Wolves fan, you just made the Lakers potentially great.
Well, yeah.
And that's what would get me. I'm sure or I'm sure publicly too, the league is thrilled.
Oh my God.
The networks are thrilled.
Well, this creates. So these two teams might face each other, by the way, in a playoff game. Real quick, we'll do a quick lap of least favorite things, and I'll start because I have a thing off what Judd just said. Luka's going to need a new dentist somewhere in California. I don't know if Park Dental can help him because they're strictly Minnesota, Western Wisconsin. 50 years of caring for and cleaning teeth. There's likely a convenient location somewhere within just minutes from wherever you work or live in the metro area in Twin Cities or Western Wisconsin, like I said. But I just got you this morning, scheduled my next appointment for a teeth cleaning in a few weeks at Park Dental. Schedule your checkup at parkdental.com. You can check out the reviews all over the internet. It's full of 5-star ratings, people just raving about their experience. They didn't judge me for not having been to a dentist in like a year and a half because I was between dentists. I'm like, oh, they're going to judge me. They're going to laugh. They're going to clown. Nope, parkdental.com. Also, a shout out to Federated Insurance. Federated's like having a great offensive line for your business, or I don't know, like having a great rim protector in Flagrant Howls terms for your business, so that you can stay focused on growing your business and winning, and they stay focused on safety, preventing claims, and risk management. Federated's been around since the early 1900s in Owatonna, Minnesota. They help business owners in all 50 states, wherever you are consuming this podcast. So find out more, federatedinsurance.com, where you can find a full list of industries that they specialize in. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. Okay, my least favorite current Wolves thing is that 3 different teams this last weekend either got a lot better in the short term or the long term. Judd, you hit on the Lakers. Like, oh, what are the Lakers going to do? Is it going to be like Bronny and a little bit of Anthony Davis for a few years? Like, who's going to lead that team? Well, now Luka is going to be, even if he's a little overweight, like they're going to be a playoff team and formidable and in the top mix in the Western Conference. The Mavericks in the short term are a problem with all those trees, but also the San Antonio Spurs just put De'Aaron Fox next to Wemby for the next probably handful of years, and they have some room also to maybe add some more pieces. So my least favorite current Wolves thing is the Western Conference is very much loaded. There's going to be 11 or 12 formidable teams and only 10 spots in the playoffs in the play-in for this year. And the Spurs are coming at some point. Wemby is going to be the best player in the NBA. So you got to make a move or two to make sure Anthony Edwards has what he needs around him. And he needs to level up too, as Wemby and then the LA version of Luka continue to push forward. That's my least favorite Wolves thing.
Mine is the legal process. Let's just figure out this ownership thing.
That's good.
Okay. My God, man. I think
Next
we can.
week?
I think we are a week away. We're doing this February 3rd. February 10th, I believe, is the hardcore deadline for the arbitrators to get together and release their opinion or their decision. Working a little bit last week in Arizona, hanging out with people. I believe that will then come to an email that gets sent to both sides' legal teams. And then from there, they will probably, whoever wins will be giddy to tell everyone that they won. But
delete it.
Yeah, so I'm trying to be on that email thread. But let's just figure this out, because, again, why do I bring up the ownership stuff all the time? Because to what Phil just said, I think ownership is something that we can't really talk about because you don't really get it and you don't really have access to those people. But it's also probably more impactful on your favorite sports team than your favorite athlete, because 2 of the teams that were involved in this weekend have really bad ownership. The Sacramento Kings have a terrible owner. The Dallas Mavericks have a really bad owner that really just wants to build the Venetian of Dallas more than they want to build a winning title. Like they just want to build a super sweet casino, and they're fighting legislators. So having bad ownership, the Chicago Bulls just traded Zach LaVine again for no picks except their own pick back after they made a dumb trade. So if you have bad ownership, I think it's impossible to have a good team. You're seeing it with the Browns too, like Myles Garrett. So I think the Wolves need to figure out this ownership thing, and then maybe they'll be able to kind of rebound and start to put good pieces and good momentum moving forward.
Yeah.
That's true. Cuban never allows this trade. Not in 1,000 years.
Oh my God, not
He
a
would have fired the
chance.
GM for suggesting it. Seriously.
Honest to God, I think you're right.
Yeah. Mine is this: opportunity lost. So it was inevitable that the Wolves eventually were going to get guys hurt. It's a long year.
Yeah.
This team whiffed on an opportunity to build a cushion while having a remarkable run of guys healthy. That ends at some point. It's done now. So they didn't build the cushion. The job becomes tougher, and now guys are starting to get hurt, get sick, blah, blah, blah. So it's just too bad that this team could not especially take care of business against the bad teams, the poor teams, because they'd be in a very good position now and could probably get through this spat of injuries if they had. They didn't. It was a real opportunity, and unfortunately, they didn't take advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah.
Mine's pretty simple. After watching the game in person last week on a Monday, I'm good with. I know we want young kids to play in the Dillingham and Jaylen Clarks. I'm good on Josh Minot minutes. I'm good on Josh Minot breaking layups. So, yep, I've seen enough. I saw 3 minutes. I saw 2 bricks at the rim, and I said, I'm good. Don't need any more of that. I'm not advocating for mine.
Declan Finch.
All good.
Finch might have been less patient than old Dex tweets. Finch
Yeah, I
saw
did.
one backdoor cut, 12 seconds, like, all right,
Good.
I'm good too. Dex, we're both good. We're good.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, Dex.
Yep.
Good.
Jaylen Clark, over here.
Good. Oh, God.
Awesome, man. All right, Kyle Tigey jumping in on a Monday with us here. The sports dad, Judd, our producer, Dex. I am Phil. All right, boys, buckle up, man. Keep those. I hope Woj comes out of retirement this week. Wouldn't that be funny if Woj, it was like the top, like The Rock only comes back for like WrestleMania. He only comes back to break like 2 big trade deadline week.
Quick question. Does this leak out if Woj is still around? Because, I mean, this
Like
never...
does it get out before?
Yes, like they were talking for like 2 weeks, and they didn't tell, it was very hush-hush. But my point is, does Woj unearth this through his myriad of sources if he's still on the NBA beat?
I say no because I think Woj is way more professional. Shams loves to he'll tweet about COVID. So I think Woj would have kept it tight. But to close it up, and to Judd's point 20 minutes ago, the reason this trade is so crazy to me, because in 2025, you never get this. You never just get railroaded by breaking news. It's always leaked by some burner or some fake like that's what made this trade crazy. Is it was 10:30 on the West Coast, and all of a sudden I'm up just staring at Twitter until 3 a.m. because it was the craziest trade of my life.
Amazing, man. Yeah. Amazing. All right. Our hottest Wolves takes will come at you later this week. We will be monitoring, like everyone else, the next Tim Connolly bomb, he also operates in the shadows, and we'll see. This is Flagrant Howls, your favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.